Yeah, hello everyone. This is Mr. Lang. I teach computer science and software engineering, and one of our amazing projects is to learn how to install, and we will definitely be using a Linux virtual machine. So I've done a couple of them. This is just a quick video to review the process of how we do it, some of the settings that we have. So let's get started. First of all, I have a couple applications here. Over here on the left is my Oracle VirtualBox. It is a free download off the internet. I'll show you where we can find that later in my video demonstration this morning. But this is used to make a virtual machine, a computer inside of a computer, if you will. Over here on the right, this is my local file management. This is on my hard drive that I have on my computer. I have a few file folders to get to where I am, but here is my Linux Ubuntu. Linux is what we are going to be installing today. So I'm going to open that up. And I got a few directories here. One directory that's going to be very important is this ISO file. Now again, I got that free off the internet. Linux is free. It is open source software, so they allow us to use it and play with it and do all sorts of cool stuff with it. This is the operating system that I'm going to be using on a daily basis, and I don't want to mess with that. This is a vlog practice, all right, that I did, and so I'm going to make a new one. So I'm just going to Control-Shift-N on my keyboard, and I'm going to make a new directory called vlog practice, because we're going to make a video vlog of this whole process, and I'm going to say take two. All right, something different, name something different than my other one. So we're going to start there. That's where I'm going to put my operating system. So now over on the left is where we're going to start the magic. So I'm going to full screen this here, and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to add or create a new one. So I'm going to create a new virtual machine. And this is going to be saying, okay, well, what do you want to name this virtual machine? And I'm just going to call it Linux Practice. And that'll be good for now. All right, and that's what's going to kind of show up over here. I've got this one called Linux Ubuntu Vlog Practice, so I'll just call this Linux Practice. This is where we are going to put it. This is very important for you to change to make sure that you put your operating system in the correct folder. So I'm going to click this down arrow, choose Other, brings up my file management. I'm going to head to my desktop, and then I know kind of where my file management is here for this. So it takes me a second just to click through, but I'm going to put this operating system in my vlog practice operating system, take two. I'll select that folder again. That's where the operating system is going to be stored. Now we need our ISO file. So I'm going to go ahead and navigate to that, and I'll choose Other. And again, this is my, kind of brings me to this because I've been here before, but I'm just going to kind of double check my file path that I am going to where it needs to go, and that's where what I need. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on this file. That is my ISO file right there. Perfect. So these other things we're just going to kind of leave too, so that kind of knows that it's Linux after I chose that file and gave it a name, 64-bit, great. I'm going to go and click on this unintended install, and this is where I'm going to give it a username. So I'm just going to call this Linux Practice for giggles here. All right, and then I'm going to give it a password. So I'm just going to give it a basic password for this morning. I'll be deleting this VM. The host name, you can see the orange over here. It doesn't like this space that we put in here, so I'm going to get rid of that space and see if it likes that. Oh, you know what it also doesn't like is capital letters. So I'm just going to type in Linux Practice. All right, and it likes that. That'll work for my host name, which is great. And we'll just keep our domain name there. I'm going to now choose on my hardware. This is where I'm going and choosing how much RAM. My host machine, if I do a Windows system on my host operating system, which I'm running Windows 11, I've got, oh, let's see here. This is my processor. I have 6 cores, 12 logical processors. So I'm going to use about half of those cores for my VM. My memory down here, I have 32 gigs of memory. Those are very important things to kind of know and understand how much of those resources that you have available. I also want to check out under components, storage, and my drives. I've got about a gig of space on my drive. However, I've only got about 463 gigs left on my hard drive for storage. So those are some important numbers to know. So I'm going to give this about 8 gigs. So 8192. If my keyboard will type, I believe my number lock was off and not sure what's going on. Let's try this again. We'll highlight that 81. Ah, let's try this. The third time's the charm, they say. Let's see if I can do this. Now, 80, there we go, 8192 for 8 gigs of RAM. I'm going to jump my cores up to 3. All right, perfect. I don't need to enable my EFI. It's now asking me how much hard drive space that I want for this. And if you recall, my system information, I've got about 463 gigs left. For this presentation, I'm going to leave it at 25 gigs. Sometimes you may want to jump that up to 100 gigs. That's kind of up to you. I need my G in there for gigabytes. But again, this is what's cool about this is it's not going to take that 100 gigabytes right away. So if I'm adding things to it, maybe installing a new piece of software, maybe uploading a video to it, it will increase that hard drive size until I hit my 100 gigabyte threshold. So I'll leave that there. All right, so the rest of these I'm going to go ahead and just leave. I'm going to go ahead and choose finish. And now it's actually going to start booting up, powering up my VM. All right, so it loads up another window. All right, so I can see try or install Ubuntu. I'll press my enter key there, and these pop up as well. Let's see. We'll move this over to the side. Sometimes I'll just close this. And now the install of a brand new operating system, a computer inside of a computer is loading up. I'm going to move that to about 50% of my screen. I'm going to drag my notes over here so we can learn a little bit about what a virtual machine is. And a virtual machine is just software based on emulations of a physical computer. So it's emulating it, it's copying it, it's making it look like it. Oh, well, that was loud in my eardrum as this is installing and loading up. They allow you to run an operating system and applications within another operating system, effectively creating a computer within a computer. So cool. Here are some key points from virtual machines. All right, so as that's doing this, it's asking me to create a little bit more information here. Linux practice is invalid. Note the username must start with a lowercase letter, which I believe it does. So I'm going to leave that there. I do not know why my number lock does not like me this morning, and that's kind of a not very good password. But again, I'm going to be deleting this eventually. All right, so we'll install that. We'll choose continue there. And now again, it's going through the install process. And I'll probably have to do something else along the way. But while we're doing that, some key characteristics of a virtual machine. Isolation, which is big. VMs run in an isolated environment. It's separate from the host computer. So again, when I say host, I'm running Windows 11. When I hit the power button on my computer every morning, it loads up Windows 11. But you know what? As a developer, I want to work inside of Linux. That's where most developers work inside of. And so I'm installing Linux right on my Windows 11. Resource management. VMs can be allocated specific amounts of CPU, memory, and storage resources. As you saw as I was building it, I chose how much of those resources I want to use. So really cool. There's some other things here, but what are really virtual machines used for? Testing and development. Developers can test software in different environments without needing multiple physical machines and whole new computer to put Linux on. No, I can test this out right on my computer I'm working at on a daily basis. A lot of other things as well. Types of virtual machines, system virtual machines. These emulate an entire computer system, including the operating system. Bam, right here, Linux. All right, I'm going to go to also, my next one is hypervisors. So as I mentioned, this is running on a hypervisor. That's a piece of software. And the hypervisor that I'm using, VMware Player. It's so cool. You can do so many cool things with it. You can actually make backups, also known as snapshots of it. I've done snapshots on my other operating system, so if something goes haywire, I can go back and restore my operating system from another location. Here's my old Linux one, and I have a fresh install. I make a snapshot right when I install it. If something happens during maybe an update or whatever, before I update, I always make a snapshot, but I can always restore it to another version if things go wrong. So really cool with all the things that you can do. You can see the activity of your virtual machine, how much CPU, RAM. We've got to work on this guest editions, and we'll work on that for that to work. But again, that's my hypervisor that I'm working in. I'm using a hypervisor 2. Hypervisor 2 runs on top of an existing operating system. Again, my host is Windows 11. Thank you, Windows 11, for being a great host. The host operating system manages hardware, resources, and the hypervisor operates as software layer to create and manage my virtual machines. So as you saw, I have different virtual machines here. If I go back to my hypervisor, I've got Windows 11, and I will be using Linux Ubuntu 22. On another computer of mine, I have Linux Mint, Kali Linux. Again, all these different operating systems that I can learn and play with. What are some advantages of the Hyper 2? Well, they're easier to set up and use, making them suitable for development, testing, personal use. However, they may have slightly lower performance compared to Type 1 hypervisors due to the additional overhead of the host operating system. So when I say that additional overhead, well, my Windows 11 needs RAM. It needs a CPU to run as well. So it does use some of those. But I tell you what, man, with these modern computers, with the RAM that we have available to us, man, they work really, really well. I'm going to jump back to my virtual machines and I'm going to go to my computer hardware. So some of the things again that you saw that I used, one was our central processing unit, the CPU. We chose how many cores that we want to use. We got to allow our host operating system to have some. We also are going to allow our virtual machine to use some as well. But the CPU, it's the primary component of a computer that acts as its brain. It is responsible for executing instructions, performing calculations that drive all of the computer's operations. So you can see some of the key functions of a CPU here. Very cool. I got a great picture of what a CPU looks like when it's put onto the motherboard. Definitely would like a fan and all that. Don't forget your thermal paste. We also chose how much RAM we want. Again, random access memory. This is a crucial component of a computer hardware that provides high-speed temporary storage for data and instructions that the CPU needs to access quickly. So RAM, man, I tell you what, it is really advanced. As it says, 32 gigs. I have a laptop with 64 gigs on it. Pretty amazing how much RAM now you can pack into these modern computers, and it really allows you to run. I can run multiple virtual machines. I can have a Windows 11 virtual machine, a Linux, a Kali, and I can have them all running with the modern hardware that we have these days. So really cool. There's a picture of some RAM going onto the motherboard right there. And we also chose, again, I chose 100 gigabytes of RAM, of memory to be stored on my hard drive. So that's where my applications, my programs are being stored. If I have a video that I store on my virtual machine, it's being stored on the hard drive as zeros and ones. So it's a data storage device used in computers to store and retrieve digital information. It uses magnetic storage to hold and access data. Well, some of them use magnetic storage, the HDD, the hard disk drives. Some of them now with the SSDs, they become more popular due to their faster speeds. Hard drive remains widely used for their large storage capacities and affordability, especially in scenarios where vast amounts of data need to be stored. But SSDs, pretty cool. So that's a picture of a great hard drive there. So as we see, my right on cue, my virtual machine, it goes through a restart process and reboots a little bit. I'm going to drag my notes off to the side, and here's my vlog practice. I can see that my Linux operating system that I'm installing over here on the left, all these files are being opened and run for my Linux virtual machine. I'm going to drag that off to the side as well. But here we are, just in time, Linux practice. I'm going to put in my password after I put my number lock on and go ahead and press enter, and now the magic of computers. Look at this. I'm going to skip making all these accounts and all this good stuff and done, but here's my virtual machine. Let me see if my Control F works to put in full screen. I may have to right click and go to display settings and change some of the display settings. I think I want to do this 1920 by 1080 and apply that, and I'll keep those changes. I could go in and even change my background to a cool thing or something like that. Man, and I could even add more, but look at how cool this is. This is my Linux virtual machine. It looks like I am totally embedded in it. If I hit my Control F key on my keyboard, that's a shortcut for the hypervisor. Here's my Linux over here. Here's my host operating system back here, my Windows 11, with all of my stuff on my desktop. That's a mess, but here it is. I mean, I can access the internet. I can go to Firefox. I can install applications, which we'll be using. I'm not going to upgrade right now. Let's see. Don't upgrade. Yeah, I said don't upgrade. So here's Firefox. Here's their privacy notice. But if I want to go to Google or search weather, because, hey, we had a snow day yesterday here in Michigan, which was cool. 24 degrees. I can check it out. But, I mean, it is a computer inside of a computer. We have a file system very similar to what you see in Windows. Kind of cool. But we're going to be using this to develop. And if we mess something up, you know what? It's a virtual machine. We can make another one in 10 minutes and rock and roll. All right. So thank you for hanging out with me while I install and create a virtual machine using Oracle's VirtualBox as my hypervisor and Linux Ubuntu as my operating system. So very cool. Stay with me. We're going to have a lot of other cool vlogs throughout this course. I appreciate your attendance.